All right, good morning. It is Wednesday. We are now moving through the chapter. We are on homes and households and disease and medical treatment. So I really like these two sections because we are all in our homes every single day now. Literally, we have to be because we can't go to school and most of us aren't going to work physically. So we are in our homes and we are being affected either directly or indirectly by a disease that's in the world right now. So these two sections really impact us, and we can relate to how people were living in the Middle Ages. So I think these are really two interesting and important sections. Also, they're going to touch on some diseases that we're going to study through the rest of the year in social studies. So super interesting sections. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. I'm going to read the sections out loud again. Just going to go over the directions. It's a B-Day. Watch this instruction video. We're reading sections 4.5, homes and households, and 4.6, disease and medical treatment. Choose two from each section. So I'm putting 4 questions for each section, but you don't have to answer all of them. So you just choose two to answer and from each section. So for 4.5, for homes and households, you choose 2 of these. For 4.6, disease and medical treatment, you choose 2 of those. And then do the same thing you did yesterday. Find one thing in the image for either homes or households or disease and medical treatment and describe how it fits in with that section. So the questions that we're looking for 4.5 are: what did homes in medieval towns look like? Why were the homes of most town dwellers uncomfortable? Why was growing up in medieval towns difficult? And how were the lives of medieval girls different from those of modern girls? You can certainly answer all of them if you want to. It's totally up to you. So I'm just changing it to choose at least 2 to answer. If you want to answer more, you're interested in it, go for it. But you only have to answer 2 from each section. Just make it really clear. Just if you could do me a favor and number it like 4.5. And then if you're choosing 1 and 4, do it that way. Just so I know exactly which ones you are answering. That's going to be easiest for me as I'm going through 110 responses. All right, so let's read the section 4.5, homes and households. Medieval towns were typically small and crowded, as we saw in the picture. Most of the homes were built of wood. They were narrow and could be up to 4 stories high. As wooden houses aged, they tended to lean. Sometimes 2 facing houses could lean so much they touched across the street. Rich and poor lived in quite different households. In poor neighborhoods, several families might share a house. A family might only have one room where they cooked, ate, and slept. In general, people worked where they lived. If a father and mother was a weaver, for example, the loom would be in the home. Wealthy merchants often had splendid homes. The first level might be given over to a business, including offices and storerooms. The family's living quarters might be on the second level, complete with a solar, a space where the family gathered to eat and talk. An upper level might house servants and apprentices. Even for wealthy families, life was not always comfortable. Rooms were cold, smoky, and dim. Fireplaces were the only source of heat as well as the main source of light. Windows were small and covered with oil parchment instead of glass, because they didn't have great glass back then, so little sunlight came through. Growing up in medieval towns wasn't easy either. About half of all children died before they became adults. That's a crazy number. Those who survived began preparing for their adult roles at around the age of 7. Around the age of 7, think about how old you are now. Think about how many years are between you and 7. That's how long children would have started to become adults. Some boys and girls attended school where they learned to read and write. Children from wealthier homes might learn to paint and to play music on a lute, a stringed instrument. Other children started work as apprentices. In general, people of the Middle Ages believed in an orderly society in which everyone knew their place. Most boys grew up to do the same work as their fathers. Some girls trained for a craft, but most girls married young, some as early as 12, and were soon raising children of their own. For many girls, their education was at home, where they learned cooking, cloth making, and other skills necessary to run a home and care for a family. So some as early as 12. Think about that. Think about how old you are now. All right. The next section is on 4.6, disease and medical treatment. We're looking to answer at least 2 of these. How did unhealthy living conditions and limited medical knowledge affect life in medieval towns? What are some common diseases in medieval Europe? What were some common practices used by medieval doctors? What group was sometimes blamed when an outbreak of a disease occurred, and why? All right, let's read the chapter, Disease and Medical Treatment. Unhealthy living conditions in medieval towns led to the spread of many diseases. Towns were very dirty places. There was no running water in homes. Instead of bathrooms, people used outdoor privies, shelters used as a toilet, or chamber pots that they emptied into nearby streams and canals. Garbage, too, was tossed into streams and canals or onto streets. People lived crowded together in small spaces. They usually bathed once a week, if that. Rats and fleas were common, and they often carried diseases. It's no wonder people were often ill. Many illnesses that can be prevented or cured today had no cures in medieval times. One example is leprosy. Because leprosy can spread from one person to another, lepers were ordered to live by themselves in isolated houses, usually far from towns. Some towns even passed laws to keep out lepers. Common diseases that had no cure included measles, cholera, and scarlet fever. The most feared disease was the bubonic plague, also called the Black Death. You learn more about this disease and the impact of Europe in the next chapter. No one knows exactly how diseases like this were spread. Unfortunately, no one knew exactly how diseases like these were spread. Unfortunately, this made many people look for someone to blame. For example, after an outbreak of illness, Jews were sometimes accused of poisoning wells. Although hospitals were invented during the Middle Ages, there were few of them. When sickness struck, most people were treated in their homes by family members or sometimes a doctor. Medieval doctors believe in a mixture of prayer and medical treatment. Many treatments involved herbs. Using herbs as medicine had a long history based on traditional folk wisdom and general knowledge handed down from ancient Greece and Rome. Other treatments were based on less scientific methods. For example, medieval doctors sometimes consulted the positions of the planets and relied on magic charms to heal people. Another common technique was to bleed patients by opening a vein and applying leeches, a type of worm, to the skin to suck out the blood. Medieval doctors believed that bloodletting people helped restore balance to the body and spirit. Unfortunately, such treatments often weakened a patient further. So it was not really a fun time to be a medical patient in the medieval times. A lot of gruesome, um, a lot of gruesome procedures were done, and they often blamed certain types of people, like Jewish people, for the outbreak. So a lot going on in that. So again, you choose two of these to answer, and then you find one thing in the picture, either from homes or households or disease and medical treatment, and describe how it fit in with that section. I just put the image on the weekly agenda, so it's just on the second page of that in case you're looking for it. And something from homes and households or something from disease and medical treatment in this image. Okay. Good luck. If you have any questions, let me know in Google Hangouts. We are more than halfway done with the week. We got a nice short week this week.